An environment that ensures the learner's active exposure to elements of different cultures and facilitates their involvement in a multicultural context is known as culturally rich. Culturally rich is to be knowledgeable, exposed, welcoming, intrigued, and curious. It is to be a student and a teacher, a player in a game with millions of others, yet with one sole objective: unity. Welcome to an ode to cultural richness. Welcome to an ode to Noir. Ready? All right, amazing. Let's go. Take one.
It's okay to not know, and it's okay to not have everything figured out. Because I feel like when you're young, there's all of this pressure to have this linear journey in your life, and this is what you need to stick with. But life is not black and white, and it's okay to try things because that's the only way you're going to know what you don't like. Yeah. And I just tell my younger self to be at peace with that.
I've done some mistakes in life, but I think it's part of the journey from being a child to a teenager to an adult. But I will do it again.
The one advice that I would give to my younger self, stop worrying. I used to worry a lot when I was younger. I did not think that I was very talented. I did not think that I would, do well as, because obviously growing up in India, it's a lot about, competition. Every kid is, pretty much trying to be a doctor, an engineer, or a software, whatever, and I was not one of those kids. So I used to obviously worry. So yeah, I would say that to my younger self, dude, it's okay. You've done well.
Be fearless.
I think I would tell him to be more humble, because I was kind of flying high, going to the right schools, went to Oxford for PhD, and then like my ego had taken over me, and I had to fall. And I think that, it was nice to have that fall. I enjoyed it, actually. It was the best thing that could have happened, but I would be more humble during those years.
So my advice to my younger self is very much so, keep it up, but also don't forget yourself. Don't allow everything else to then make you feel smaller than what you are, because you're a big ball of energy, girl.
I think it'd be more kinder to yourself. I was very hard on myself growing up. I didn't think I was good enough. I never thought I was good enough. And I felt like I always had something to prove. And that made me be more harder on myself a lot. So just to be more kinder to myself.
Proudest part of my career is just the constant need of, galvanizing people and developing people. I don't know, I get a big high of seeing other people succeed around me. And I've got to say that I feel like all the colleagues I've had in the past and present, if I could look back at them now and see where they are today, if anything's done with my career is that I've been able to, add a little part to them getting to where they need to go. So that's probably been the proudest part.
I've changed a lot in my career. So I went from aviation, I was a flight attendant. Before that, I was a flight dispatcher. And then I decided to change for something completely different. I do have to say that COVID participated in that. But I think thanks to my resilience, should I say, I don't necessarily have a moment where I was the proudest in my career, but operating this change without being scared. And as of today, I don't regret it. I think that was the biggest achievement. Yeah. But I do have to say that the day I allowed an aircraft to take off, thanks to all the calculation that I had to do, I was proud of myself.
I think, I studied classical music. I got a first-class honours degree. And the work that went into that, I feel like that was something that I'd never done before. Yeah. And as a child, I said, I want to be that kind of person that goes to uni and gets a first-class honours degree, and I did. And I feel like that was the first big thing I did that I said I wanted to do. And then that kind of propelled me, so, yeah.
No. I love that as well. I think the proudest moment for me, like following on from you, I recently graduated, so it's only the beginning. So just knowing that has just filled me with a lot of excitement, because I know that the best is kind of yet to come. But so far I would say coming to Snap and starting here and just getting my foot in the door, because I know this is only the beginning. So that really is my proudest moment.
when I decided to apply for things I didn't think I could get, and then I got them. And then I exceeded that. And I thought, well, what do we do after this? Like, where do we go after this? And you just keep doing things. You keep challenging yourself. You keep putting yourself in environments that you feel uncomfortable so that they become too comfortable. And the next one becomes uncomfortable. So that there's always levels to go to. I think the proudest thing is probably doing more than I expected and knowing that I could continue to do more than I expect.
I'm Caribbean, so our culture from outside might look like it's a mix of different things, and it is, but we still created a culture through history, and we're proud of it. It comes from different spices, that comes from different continents. And when I say spice, I don't necessarily talk about food, in terms of behavior, in terms of language, and even if we're not a big population in the world, our impact is known. I have to say, like, April is Jamaican, so she will know what I'm talking about. There's no one that on earth, I believe, would not know about Jamaican culture. If they don't, they should. The food, for example, I think is a good connection. The music as well. There's no moment where on a Sunday, this is my little tradition, side to side, I listen to Groka, which is like a music from my culture, which is it's an African music, has a lot of drums, and I dance on it secretly. So the same way people sing in their bathroom, I just dance on a Sunday on it, and it really helps me to feel through the drum, kind of like the history that my people went through. And it's the richness of it. I don't always see it as a drama, it's the richness. And I also cook whilst I listen to this music, Caribbean dish. So I'm always around my culture and I'm very proud of it.
So my fondest memory from my culture was being young, so around about the age of maybe like 6, 7, and going to my granddad's house. He lived in Streatham. And just coming through the door and you just smell, rice and peas, brown stewed chicken. It's just, the flavors and just the smells coming through. And then just always looking forward to, like, I would always say, oh, we're going to granddad's house and we're getting different food, So, and we just go and sit down, on a Sunday dinner, get a Sunday dinner. And then, they're making like carrot juice or fried plantain. Yeah, that's it. Just getting different food and just, and that's been in our household. But that's my memories. Like, I love it. That's something that, I would always cherish. And yeah, that's culture to me.
But just having a sense of like family for me is really important. It was just, I remember that like cousins, and we would travel to the village because I'm from Eastern Nigeria. So, and I lived in Lagos at the time, and we would travel back to Eastern Nigeria, and that was something that was really beautiful. And then everyone gathers around in like my grandparents' house, and it's just like we just spent Christmas together, and it was just really nice.
If I think about a specific tradition, it's actually something that meant so much more to me when my son was born. So we have, it's called, I don't know what the translation would be, but in Creole it's called a pulnado, which means it's the first trip that a baby makes when they've come home from the hospital. So it normally happens about a week after they come home. And so they have this whole thing where it's like, they put like a little bit of salt on their tongue, a little bit of sugar on their tongue, a little palm oil. Then they take them to the front door and they say, oh, this is the way that you'll go to school. This is the way that, you go to see grandma and grandpa. Yeah. So it's just a real kind of like welcome to the world thing. And I loved it.
I'm obviously Muslim. You can see it as soon as you see me. Yeah. I don't hide it. I'm always here to answer questions for anyone that's interested. Growing up, my culture wasn't necessarily celebrated in the mainstream. It was always celebrated in my household though. We were always very happy to be where we were from. We were Arabs, and we have friends from cultures that are across the world. And my parents always made sure that we celebrated that. And then we got older, and all of a sudden people liked where we were from, and we walked into shops and like these high street shops, and people were trying to dress how my aunties dressed back home and stuff like that. So it's really weird how things have now changed. But I feel really blessed to be at Snap because it is encouraged and it is celebrated, and we are told and encouraged to celebrate ourselves and create events and get people together and network across other social media companies as well and find like-minded people from similar backgrounds.
My background, I'm Eritrean, which is a country in East Africa, and so both parents Eritrean, but I was born and raised in London. I still would just call myself Eritrean.
I'm still mixed, but I probably can guarantee I'm either Ethiopian or Eritrean. I'm from Zimbabwe, and my grandfather has Arabic descent, however you say that, and I get it a lot, but I feel like I'm Ethiopian Eritrean.
I thought you were when I first met you.
We're basically just cousins until a DNA test tells us otherwise.
Until further notice. I don't know if this really counts, but it's just a part of my tradition that I think is really cool. But it's like coffee, but like it's basically like a coffee ceremony, and you put it into like small little cups, but like everyone's together, everybody's talking, and it can take hours to finish. But yeah.
That's something from your Eritrean culture.
Yeah.
You guys do have the best coffee though. I've heard this.
I'm gonna agree, but that's not biased.
But when you say rich, you talk about someone has an abundance or something, right? So it's all about the abundance of culture around you, not just yours. It's about other people's cultures as well. And growing up in London and being Ghanaian as well, you know, I can go from saying auntie to speaking patois to speaking Cockney to speaking. So that's what it's all about, right? It's about the makeup of all your life experiences, rolling up to one and having different versions of different cultures that made you who you are today. If you can meet people, multiple people around the world and get along with them and have that sort of kinship, that to me is true cultural richness.
For me is the privilege, because I think it is a privilege at the end of the day, to be able to carry within you different cultures and different traditions. I've debated a lot around what cultural identity means to me, but a few years back, I decided to look at it from a different angle, at least try, and that's the angle of cultural richness. I think I embody different cultures altogether, and I'm proud of that. So I think cultural richness is the privilege of being able to have multiple traditions and cultures within you and cherish them in your day-to-day life.
Richness means like being back home and taking a piece of home back with you when you come back to London. So like things that I was able to do when I was young, like climbing the coconut trees and cutting my legs and my arms, those are moments that you can't actually like re-experience, and it was a part of my culture. And like Kevin said, the food, the music, it's a big part of my identity, if not all of it.
Yeah, cultural richness is that, is really diversity. Is I think the mindset of being culturally rich is being in a place where you know you're valued, you're worthy, you know you matter, and also cultural richness is having open-mindedness about the differences of others. Like not everyone is the same, not everyone thinks the same, not everyone has the same values, and being able to understand that is making space for others to exist around you.
My father loved music, and I kind of have that feeling. I have a special talent in which if I listen to a song a few times, I can just play it in my head like an iPod. But after the invention of the iPod, it's actually not really useful. But the music, the words in our language, we have a lot of influence of Persian poetry in our songs, and I love like how you can express such complicated things in such a small. And one of the principles of my life comes from one of the songs, which says, "Khudi ko kar buland itna ke har takdeer se pehle khuda bande se khud puche ki bata teri raza kya hai." It means raise yourself to such a level that God asks you what you would like. But that's my ideal principle that I try to aspire to.
That's your mantra.
Yes.
Culture richness to me is like just being like really, really owning who you are, and owning everything that comes with who you are, and also being able to open yourself up to learning other people's cultures, because I think that's something that we don't do a lot. We kind of stick to our culture, and we're like very like honed in on who we are, and then I think that doesn't help us understand other people, and that's why I like to travel a lot. So because I like to learn about other people's culture. So to me, cultural richness means like just being me and being my authentic self, but also opening myself up to learning about other people's cultures because then that helps me relate to the next individual.
That's it. What does cultural richness mean to me? To me, it means the blend of having two Sierra Leonean parents who weren't born here, who came here, you know, to work and eventually ended up having a family, my sister and I, mixed with, you know, being a Londoner, a South Londoner at that. We're a whole different breed, but special tribe. But also just being me and kind of, you know, developing my own cultures and cultural traditions within, you know, who I am, and as a mix of all of those things, right? And just figuring out how you move around in the world and as a person that you're proud of and as a person that I want my son to be proud of.
For me, anyway, I am from Rwanda. Both my parents are Rwandese. And I grew up in a refugee camp. So coming from immigrant parents and coming to the UK when I was really young. So, you know, everyone that meets me knows I'm a Londoner through and through, South London, true. But all of those facets come into who I am. And that's, for me, that is culturally rich. I have a background, I have a past, I have a history, I have a present, and using all of that to then navigate who I want to be in the future. And I think I work on that a lot, especially with my son, in terms of who he will then identify himself as. We are African first and foremost. We are Black, secondly, which is something that I learnt coming to the UK, a very new concept. But another area that makes me culturally rich. I am Black and I am a Black woman.
Cultural richness honestly meant, like I said, I think for me it meant understanding the culture itself, first of all. And honestly, like, you know, there's a lot of things that you actually see around yourself growing up, and you don't understand why it's happening, right? So Diwali, for example, in India, you know, when you're a kid, it's all about bursting crackers, you know, firecrackers and whatnot. But as you grow up, obviously you learn more about, you know, why it's celebrated, and then you learn a bit more about, you know, all the other festivals that happen around you and the traditions that, for example, traditionally in India, you're not supposed to go inside a house with your footwear on, because when you think about it, you're like, that's stupid. But there's a science behind it, which is that you don't bring the outside germs into your house, so you just leave your, you know, footwear outside. So when you're growing up, obviously you don't understand all of these things. But I think for me, the cultural richness comes from the fact that, you know, and this goes for every you know, tradition and every other different cultures. Every culture has science behind it. You know, and so understanding that culture and understanding the background of, you know, why certain things are done is more important rather than just writing it off as, you know, it's just a culture and, you know, I want to follow it or not. So
I think for you, it's like taking that extra step to understand.
Absolutely.
One of the reasons I joined Snap is because Snap's values felt very real, felt very tangible. They didn't feel like big words that don't mean much. So I'm very, very happy to have joined a company that believes in all these three things. But I like the kind aspect, and I resonate with the kind aspect the most. I think at Snap I met, I think, the most incredible people that I've ever worked with in my career.
I would say the value that resonates with me the most would be kind, because I think that people are what really make work enjoyable. Coming in every day, I know, okay, I love my team. I'm gonna get to interact with the Noir people, obviously. So it's the people, and I think kindness is at the very heart of the people, and that to me is everything.
I want smart and creative. Smart and creative makes us all better. Like, every human being should be kind. Like, we should all be kind. So why are we making that basis? So I want everyone to be smart and creative.
That's true.
That's how we make money.
For me personally, it has to be kind. That was the first impression that I got when I first came into the company, that everyone was genuinely kind. And I think when you're young and you're coming into working spaces, corporate spaces, you're always going to be so nervous about expectation or how you may be treated when you're like the youngest in your team. But having kind and genuine individuals around me has definitely shaped my experience so far.
Kind, always kind.
I think for me, it's slightly different. The Snap value that resonates with me the most, it would be creative. I love that creativity is allowed. You're allowed to express your creativity here at Snap.
Yes.
I mean, creativity means things. It can mean different things to different people.
Exactly.
But for me, that creative value that we have here at Snap is more so allowing people to express themselves and be who they really want to be. And that's a wrap.